This story follows a man named Chong Yan, an underpaid engineer who collapses from the overwhelming stress of his workload. After dying, he awakens in a new world, reincarnated into the body of a prince. In this unfamiliar land, witches exist and possess supernatural abilities. Chong Yan, now inhabiting a royal identity, plans to combine his engineering knowledge with the powers of witches to advance this primitive society. His new life begins abruptly. A voice calls out for him to wake up. As he opens his eyes, he finds himself seated on a chair, stunned by his surroundings. Several women dressed in strange old-fashioned clothing stand around him. When he looks forward, he sees an entire town gathered before what appears to be an execution platform. Naturally, his mind reels. Moments earlier he had been crunching numbers, not presiding over executions. Suddenly, a bald man addresses him as Prince, and reminds him that the time for the execution has arrived. He must announce his judgment. Still lost, Chung Yan hesitates, but as he concentrates, the original memories of the body's true owner rush into his mind. He learns that he is now Roland Wimbledon, the fourth prince of Greycastle. His father, the king, has sent each of his children to rule separate territories, promising that in 5 years the one who governs best will inherit the throne. Unfortunately for Roland, his siblings possess remarkable talents that give them a significant edge. The first prince is an exceptional warrior. The second masters finance. The third princess commands a loyal following. The fifth princess is exceptionally intelligent. Meanwhile, Roland, long considered the most useless of the royal children, has been sent to a remote border town filled with filth, poverty, and neglect. Here he must somehow transform this miserable place into a thriving territory. As he grapples with the weight of this revelation, the old advisor reminds him again to issue his ruling. Only then does he realize that the accused criminal he is expected to execute is a witch. The crowd roars with anticipation, eager to watch the supposed devil spawn be put to death. Disgusted by their ignorance and barbaric behavior, he angrily swats the execution order out of the advisor's hands and commands them to release the witch immediately. The crowd falls into uneasy silence, clearly displeased with the prince's sudden change in judgment. Roland sighs in exhaustion and announces that the trial will be postponed. The old advisor tries to convince him otherwise, and Chief Knight Carter Lannis steps forward, urging the prince to reconsider. According to him, if they delay the execution, other witches might attempt a rescue. Roland cannot help but laugh at the idea of this muscular, battle-hardened knight being so terrified of witches. He casually strolls down from the platform, suggesting that if more witches did attack, they could simply eliminate them all at once. Carter, baffled, does not know how to respond. The scene shifts to Roland's residence in Border Town. Outside, the irritated knight stands stiffly while Roland firmly shuts the door in his face. Alone, Roland initially sighs in relief before suddenly panicking. He has never dealt with so many people before, at least not while alive. Yet he refuses to waste this second chance at life. Determined, he resolves to take Roland's role seriously and uncover the truth about the witch. The story then moves to the dungeon where she is being held. Despite the knight's frantic warnings about the dangers of facing a witch, Roland simply laughs at them, teasing Carter for being scared of a little girl. Carter insists witches are servants of the devil. Roland ignores him and continues forward until he finally stands before the girl labeled a witch. She rises to her feet, and Roland immediately flushes at her beauty. Carter, however, loudly steps in, urging the prince to keep his distance. Annoyed, Roland lightly smacks the knight on the helmet and tells him to stand back. He approaches the girl again and gently asks for her name. After some hesitation, she tells her story. Her father had been trapped during a mine collapse. In the chaos, a greedy miner tried to steal his belongings. She called neighbors for help, and her uncle confronted the thief. When the man nearly killed her uncle, she instinctively reached out, unleashing a power she never meant to use. The attacker was instantly reduced to ash. Horrified, the neighbors branded her a witch. Despite her pleas for secrecy, her father ultimately turned her in. Before she can finish, the advisor steps forward and urges Roland to execute her before she causes further harm. Roland waves him off. Intrigued, he wants to see this supposed witchcraft for himself. The girl is stunned. No one has ever asked her to display her powers before. But Roland, unbothered, encourages her to demonstrate what she can do. Anna calmly reminds the prince that her powers are sealed by the locket around her neck. She warns him that removing it might unleash uncontrollable chaos. Before she can finish, Roland reaches out, snaps the chain, and tosses the locket aside as if it weighs nothing. He tells her to stop stalling and show him her powers. The moment the locket hits the ground, flames begin to crackle around her. Fire gathers and swirls in a mesmerizing dance, illuminating the entire dungeon. Roland's eyes widen in awe as the cell fills with blazing light. When the heat reaches its peak, the iron bars melt effortlessly, and Anna steps through them like it's nothing. The knight, who had been trembling nearby, flees in the opposite direction. Roland, however, stands rooted to the spot, stunned by the sheer magnitude of her abilities. Only now does he understand why the advisor claimed that fire could not harm her. She is fire. As the flames dissipate, Roland's mind sparks with possibility. The engineer in him immediately recognizes the potential of such power. This kind of magic could change everything. Anna, however, bows her head and quietly instructs him to end her life, now that she has shown him the truth. Instead, Roland removes his coat and drapes it over her scorched clothing. He tells her she is hired. In his former world logic, she is nothing less than a perpetual motion machine, capable of generating fire seemingly without limit. Naturally, not everyone shares Roland's enthusiasm. The old advisor is horrified. He shouts a warning, insisting that employing such a dangerous witch could draw the wrath of the Witch Cooperation Association and possibly doom them all. Roland dismisses his panic, ordering him to prepare a work contract for Anna and to arrange proper living quarters. Later, at the administrative office, the advisor reports that the arrangements are complete, though he still questions sparing the witch. Roland cuts him off. To him, witches are not monsters. The advisor remains unconvinced, so Roland lays out the truth plainly. Border Town is in shambles. He lacks the wealth of his brothers and the talents of his sisters. If he wants even a chance to win the king's competition, he must think differently. He must rely on solutions no one else would dare to consider. Hearing his determination, the old man relents and agrees to prepare a formal meeting with Anna. Meanwhile, Anna is thoroughly washed, cleaned, and dressed in new clothing. When she arrives at the cottage Roland has arranged, the knight proudly presents the newly prepared home. Roland is impressed with the effort, especially on such short notice. When he turns and sees Anna in her maid's attire, clean, neat, and unexpectedly charming, he is pleasantly surprised. But instead of gratitude, Anna launches into a desperate rant. She demands to know why he is housing a murderer, why he is helping someone everyone else hates and fears. Roland calmly tells her he doesn't buy into the superstition surrounding witches. He believes people fear her only because they do not understand her abilities or their potential value to society. Extending his hand, he tells her he accepts her and promises to teach her how to use her power for good. Inside the cottage, Anna immediately begins practicing. Flames surge around her wildly, scorching whatever they touch. Roland quickly realizes that teaching her control will not be simple. Worse yet, every time she activates her abilities, her clothes burn away, leaving her mortified and forcing him to provide backup outfits. Thankfully, he prepared several in advance. Their training is interrupted when the old advisor bursts through the door, breathless and shaken. He brings alarming news. Patrols have discovered signs of demon activity, months earlier than expected. Roland, unfamiliar with the term, looks around in confusion while everyone else grows pale. The advisor explains that each winter, after the first snowfall and sunset, the gates of hell open within the Dragonspine Mountains. When that happens, demons pour into the land. Because Border Town is impossible to defend, everyone must evacuate to Longsong Fortress. He assures Roland that the prince's safety is their highest priority. Roland, curious, asks if the old man has ever seen these gates of hell. The advisor admits he has not. The mountains are impassable and emit a poisonous miasma that affects anyone who gets too close, unless they are already corrupted by demonic influence. Only witches can approach the mountains and see the gates for themselves. The prince then asks if the old man has ever seen a demon. Once again, the answer is no. This is his first time in the central region, and very few people ever survive encounters with actual demons. For the first time, Roland understands why this land's economy is stagnant, and why progress is slow. Every year, the entire region must uproot itself and flee. At the end of every year, Roland raises a sharp and logical point. If Longsong Fortress can withstand the demons, then demons are not invincible. With that in mind, he becomes eager to confront them himself. The old advisor is horrified by this idea, and explains why the fortress survives the annual onslaught. Longsong has massive walls and Duke Ryan's elite troops stationed within. Border Town, positioned along the North Slope Mountains, mainly serves as the early warning system for impending demonic threats. But Roland remains steadfast. He orders the advisor to gather any local soldiers who have real experience fighting demons. Later, under the shade of a gazebo, Roland and Anna snack together while discussing the threat of the months of demons. At Roland's request, Anna begins explaining the nightmare that commoners endure each year. Her voice grows solemn as she recounts the harsh reality. Her father, like many miners in town, barely survives season after season. When the months of demons begin, the people of Border Town send their yearly mining production to Longsong Fortress in exchange for next year's rations and a bit of gold. During this period, everyone hides inside the fortress until winter ends. But one year, the months of demons lasted for 4 relentless months. Longsong officials declared that the ore delivered from autumn could only pay for 3 months of food. The 4th month's supply had to wait for new ore. But since the demons did not retreat, the people were trapped inside. Provisions became scarce, and although food was distributed equally, the strong inevitably bullied the weak. Hearing this, Roland grows furious. He promises Anna that no one will ever suffer through such torment again. After leaving the gazebo, Roland asks to speak with his advisor to check on preparations. The story shifts to the border town administrative office, where Barov has gathered 3 individuals, 2 soldiers responsible for the annual patrol and beacon lighting, and a hunter who claims to have slain demons before. One soldier stutters nervously, producing incoherent sounds. Roland sighs and directs the other soldier to speak. The second explains that demons were once ordinary forest creatures, but exposure to hellish miasma turned them savage, difficult to kill, yes, but still mortal. Once the months of demons end, Longsong's cavalry sweeps the area to eliminate any lingering beasts. At that moment, the hunter slams his fist onto the floor, boasting loudly. He claims that demons are no harder to kill than slicing cucumbers, and that he has personally slain 2. The enormous man kneels before the prince. Barov introduces him as Iron Axe, rumored to carry monster blood from the Mojang clan, which supposedly explains his towering height. Roland asks if his claims are true. Iron Axe confidently confirms he has killed a demonic boar and a wolf-type demon. He then elaborates hunters classify demons into types. The common ones begin as normal animals, but become frenzied after exposure to hellish miasma. Wolf types are fast and stealthy, while boar types possess backs so thick that even crossbow bolts struggle to pierce them. Roland quickly recognizes that these demons are simply animals with enhanced traits. Iron Axe agrees, but warns that the true threat comes from hybrid demons, abominations forged by the depths of hell. He describes one such creature, a monstrous beast, with powerful legs for charging and enormous wings for short bursts of flight. Its senses were so acute, it could detect prey no matter how well hidden. Iron Axe survived only by diving into the Redwater River and losing consciousness. Roland realizes that walls can stop ground-based monsters, but flying hybrids present a different challenge. He turns to his knight and asks how common these hybrids are. The knight replies that during any months of demons, 2 or 3 hybrids typically appear, enough to give even Longsong Fortress serious trouble. With this understanding, Roland slams his hand onto the table and announces his decision: he will remain in Border Town for the winter. Everyone freezes in shock. The knight panics and insists that they are vastly outnumbered. Roland counters by proposing they build a wall from the foot of the North Slope Mountain to the Redwater River. The knight dismisses the idea immediately, arguing it would take a lifetime to construct such a wall. Roland leans back and tells him to relax. If he cannot complete the wall quickly, he will retreat with everyone else. He has no intention of dying here. The knight, finally calming down, pledges his loyalty, vowing to protect Roland at all costs. Meanwhile, at the bustling Grey Castle port of Clearwater, the third princess appears. She comments on the cold ocean breeze signaling winter's approach, and turns to her knight, Ryan, asking about the return of their Black Sail fleet. Ryan assures the third princess that the Black Sail fleet should return to port within 3 days, assuming all goes smoothly. She notes that this is their final expedition of the year and hopes they bring back something worthwhile. As they walk through the palace, Ryan wonders how she prepared so quickly for the succession competition their father unexpectedly announced. She admits she never saw it coming, but believes the whole setup is merely paving the way for the king's favored son. Still, she laughs off the idea that competence alone guarantees the second prince's victory. She urges her knight to think deeper about why she launched the Black Sail fleet's ambitious expedition. After a moment of reflection, Ryan realizes the truth. The fleet isn't solely about acquiring wealth. It is a calculated move to gain influence and power. Through the Black Sail initiative, she has gathered skilled sailors, hardened fighters, and influential allies. This is Garcia Wimbledon, the third princess of Grey Castle, clever, strategic, and determined to carve her path to the throne. She then asks for an update on their plot to assassinate the fourth prince. Ryan sighs, reporting that there has been no word from the border. It seems their poison plan failed, and the spies involved have disappeared. Garcia sneers, assuming her younger brother dealt with those spies as soon as he discovered their betrayal. Ironically, the poison did kill the real Roland Wimbledon. Chung Yan simply reincarnated into his body afterward, causing Garcia to believe her plan failed. She now intends to kill Roland once he flees to Longsong Fortress for winter, and she orders Ryan to wait patiently. She also scoffs that the poison seller NB lied about the poison being colorless and tasteless. As punishment for deceiving her, she casually instructs Ryan to hang him, despite the poison having worked exactly as promised. Her ruthlessness is immediate, cold, and absolute. The story then shifts to Anna. She sits peacefully among green fields with her former mentor Carl, who asks what she's reading, poetry perhaps, or church history. She smiles at him gently, but a dark memory flashes before his eyes. He sees a terrified crowd accusing his innocent student of being a witch, the reincarnation of the devil. He sees her hanging. The shock jolts him awake in his office. Gasping, he reflects on the tragedy. If a pure, kind-hearted girl like Anna could be labeled evil, then the greedy officials of Grey Castle, who caused countless deaths by cutting costs with inferior stone, are the true demons. If they hadn't downgraded materials merely to save a few hundred gold coins, the theater would never have collapsed, and those innocent people would still be alive. Yet none of those corrupt administrators were punished. Instead, the blame fell on innocent stonemasons. Taxes skyrocketed, inequality grew, and unjust laws branded curious, gifted girls as devils, sending them to the gallows. He prays to God to condemn the ones who truly deserve such punishment. A knock interrupts his grief. He opens the door to find one of his young students, Nana, trembling with fear. She anxiously asks if she too will be hanged like Anna. Carl immediately comforts her, patting her head and promising to protect her at all costs. As he walks through town, his mind churns. He has spent years watching the powerful oppress the innocent. This time he refuses to stand idle. He will not allow another girl to meet Anna's fate. Then he notices a crowd gathering at the quest board. A new notice has been posted, signed and stamped by the fourth prince. It calls for laborers to construct something in the border region. Gravel workers, stonemasons, builders. Carl's eyes widen as he reads the clear, detailed announcement. He remembers the rumors about this prince. Strange, unorthodox ideas, and a personality completely unlike the other royals. Moreover, the prince supposedly dislikes the church's rigid influence, something that fills Carl with cautious hope. But supporting Anna may risk his own life. If the prince sides with the church, Carl will be executed as a sympathizer. His only hope lies in the possibility that Roland rejects the church's oppressive laws. The story returns to Roland. His knight is questioning him about the dimensions of the massive wall he plans to build. Roland explains that the wall will stand 15 feet tall and 6 feet wide, spacious enough for 4 people to stand side by side on top. His knight adds that they will need a trench as deep as a man's height to stabilize a structure of that scale. With a 15-foot height and a 6-foot top width, the base will need to be double that to ensure proper stability. Even with 350 craftsmen working non-stop on digging and construction, the knight estimates they could only finish before next year's months of demons. Roland asks what exactly causes such a delay. The knight explains that the real challenge is laying the stones. Each rock must be carefully chosen, shaped, and polished, so the pieces lock together securely. If not fitted properly, the entire wall could collapse under pressure. Roland approves the plan to dig the trench and build the foundation simultaneously. As for the stonework, he reassures his knight that he has a solution. Greycastle's alchemy workshop recently developed something called cement. The knight's eyes widen. He has never heard of such a thing. The scene shifts to the cement kiln cottage in Border Town. Roland explains that making cement is simple since the raw materials are abundant, but the challenge lies in achieving the correct calcination temperature. He admits he cannot recall the exact temperature required, and with no instruments in this world, precision is nearly impossible. Just then, the cottage door swings open, revealing Anna. Before stepping inside, Roland instructs his knight to wait outside. It is clear he has been relying on Anna's fire magic to achieve the high temperatures needed for cement. She is the perfect human furnace. Roland hands her his coat again before she emerges, once more having incinerated her clothes while working. Anna excitedly announces that she completed the task he requested. Inside, a fresh heap of cement lies on the floor. Roland examines it closely, pleased that their experiment succeeded. He decides to run tests before producing it on a larger scale. Anna asks where he plans to use the cement. Roland explains its broad applications: homes, bridges, roads, structures that can withstand rain, heat, and snow, far better than fragile wooden or mud brick houses. He credits Anna entirely, acknowledging that none of this would be possible without her. Outside, they glue several stone blocks together using the cement. Both Anna and the knight are astonished by how quickly it hardens and how strong it becomes. The knight tries prying the stones apart with all his strength but fails to move them even an inch. Roland reminds him that he underestimated the material. Cement, he says, is far stronger and more reliable than compacted dirt or clay. The knight marvels at this wonder sticky mud that becomes solid rock. Confident, the knight declares that with this invention, they could cover the entire border with walls in 5 years. Roland immediately waves the idea away. Even the tallest walls cannot protect them from enemies within. Their first battle, he says, is against nature itself. They must build homes that will not collapse and leave people homeless. And he vows to prove to the world that witches are humanity's most valuable asset. The next day, cement production begins in full. Workers who responded to Roland's recruitment notice gather raw materials and labor non-stop, giving Anna some rest. Meanwhile, Roland begins excavation for the city wall's foundation between the North Slope Mountain and the Redwater River. But progress is disappointing. When the knight proudly notes Roland's visit to the construction site, Roland sheepishly admits the truth. After all their effort, they have only managed to scrape out a crude ditch, nowhere near the sturdy foundation needed for a major city wall. Back on Earth, Roland used to geek out over mechanical blueprints with his civil engineer friend. Together they made an impressive duo of engineering nerds. But here, without modern tools or expertise, he quickly realizes civil engineering is not something he can bluff his way through. He desperately wishes he had a real stonemason or construction professional to consult. As if on cue, the advisor arrives with news. A stonemason has responded to their notice. Even more surprising, the man claims to have been a member of the famed Grey Castle Mason Guild. Roland immediately recognizes the name, one of the country's most respected guilds before it was disbanded following a construction accident. Shrugging off the guild's tragic past, Roland argues that every profession carries risk. What matters now is talent. Excited, he orders the advisor to bring the stonemason to him at once. The story shifts to Roland's administrative office in Border Town. Roland lounges casually at his desk, while Anna sits nearby, absorbed in a book. At last, the knight arrives with the stonemason Roland has been eager to meet, only for Roland to discover that the man is none other than the teacher who had been worrying earlier about his little witches. Before the teacher can begin any formal greetings, Roland waves off the courtesy and tells him to relax. But when the teacher notices Anna, he freezes, utterly shocked. His mind races, while Roland and the knight stare just as perplexed. Sensing danger or at least misunderstanding, Roland quickly orders the knight to block the door. The knight obeys immediately, planting himself at the entrance as if preparing to restrain a threat. But instead of attacking, the teacher collapses to his knees and begs Anna to forgive him for being unable to protect her when she needed him most. Realizing he is no danger to her, Roland relaxes. Anna, too, immediately recognizes her former teacher. Roland instructs the man to stand and explain himself. The teacher introduces himself as Carl van Bate, a former member of the Grey Castle Mason Guild who later became a teacher in Border Town. He reveals that Anna was once his student. He then nervously comments that he doesn't understand why the prince spared Anna's life. Perhaps, he suggests, Roland wanted her as a concubine, but even that would be better than her being executed. Roland and Anna both stare at him, baffled by the absurd assumption. Carl becomes relieved when he realizes Roland does not believe in the church's claims about witches being devils incarnate. He then mentions that another gifted girl, Nana, has also awakened powers and needs protection. Roland immediately agrees to shelter her if necessary, though he notes he cannot take a child from her family unless she is in real danger. Inwardly, he is thrilled by the possibility of meeting another witch. Outwardly, he remains calm and composed. He explains clearly that he did not spare Anna out of sentimentality. He needs her help. He believes witch abilities are valuable tools, not curses, and as long as a witch commits no crime, he sees no reason to punish her. With that cleared up, Roland gets down to business. He asks Carl whether he has ever worked on construction in Grey Castle. Carl nods enthusiastically and confirms he has extensive experience. Roland lays out his plan to construct a massive wall from the foot of North Slope Mountain to the Redwater River, an enormous project designed to keep demons out during the months of demons. From today onward, Carl will lead the entire construction effort.